Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Today we have a very special guest, Cindy Couyoumjian, certified financial planner, founder of Synergy Financial, and author of Redefining Financial Literacy, something that you've got to read. She believes that financial literacy is a moral imperative, which is why she devoted her professional life to help people understand the constantly evolving financial and economic landscape. She has 35 years in the industry. My God, I thought she was only 35. 8 security licenses, as well as a California insurance license. She's a leader in the financial industry, but also an innovator of investment methodology. Cindy's passion is to educate people on the importance of taking better care of their hard-earned money. Yeah, I need that. And she is passionate about inspiring people to believe in themselves and to believe in possibility. She broadcasts weekends on Los Angeles radio station KABC. Welcome to Politics Done Right. Cindy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing terrific. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So first of all, there is this big, humongous $1.9 trillion bill in Congress. Tell me, and in fact, they're debating it now. I'm taping it now. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on this bill.
Well, I am very excited about it because, you know, when stimulus is created by the government, that also keeps the stock market propped up, in my professional opinion. So that's good for investors in the short term. And as you know, the Senate just passed the $1.9 trillion package, which means the only person left to sign is Biden. And once he signs the bill, you can expect those checks to be directly deposited or mailed to you. If you're single, you're going to get $1,400 if you qualify. So there's some qualifications. If you're married, $2,800. And if you have small kids, up to $3,000 per child. So that's a lot of money if you have a family of 4, right?
It's a lot of money, but I'm going to, first of all, I want to thank you for coming here and talking. You know, a certified financial planner, I think, is important for a lot of people. Most can't afford you, so they're getting you for free right now. So let's ask you for some advice on a few things here. Somebody gets a $1,400 check.
Yeah.
What do they do? In other words, if it's a family of 2, they've got $2,800. If it's a family of 4, they may have up to over $5,000, right?
Yeah. So the first thing I think that investors really need to consider is their emergency fund, because almost 50% of Americans did not have $400 in their emergency fund when the pandemic hit. So, you know, a lot of times, you know, our brain, once we get, you know, a landfill of money that comes towards us, or we have this knee-jerk reaction to want to spend it, right? But I think people need to just take a step back and reward yourselves. Take some of it and maybe spend it versus taking all of it and buying something you really want, but you don't need. So that's the first thing. Evaluate your emergency fund. Number 2, really think this through. Don't get emotional. Once you've been able to reward yourself with some of that, if you feel you need to, then consider saving it. And you really need to identify what your goals are. Could you put it into something long-term like an IRA for retirement? Or do you want it in something more short-term to have access to it, more liquidity? So I think you need to take a moment and think about it. And please don't go open a Robinhood account and start gambling in the stock market. Because isn't that what a lot of people did with the first stimulus check?
I don't know. Cindy, do you know that for a fact? I wondered, I've heard that on some channels. People say, oh, they got a stimulus check and just went ahead and threw it into Robinhood. Do you really think that happened?
Well, the reason I state that is Robinhood had more accounts opened in the first half of this last year when the pandemic hit than any other time. So yes, I do believe people were, you know, out there. The market had crashed in March. As you know, the Dow dropped about 40%. I'm sure once people started getting their checks, they thought it would be a buying opportunity. And a lot of Robinhood accounts were opened. And you know, there's a lot of people, you know, stocks are red hot right now. You turn on the TV and that's all you hear is about these, you know, high flying tech stocks. So yeah, that's one thing you don't want to do is invest your money in something you don't know about and risk the capital.
I think that is sound advice. But for another topic not to be discussed here, I just have a question for you because I think you should know this. What percentage of Americans actively, I'm not talking about maybe in their portfolios that they don't really manage, but what percentage of Americans actively engage in the stock market? Do you know that number? I don't.
It's actually a small percentage, believe it or not. The largest percentage of people are companies that buy back their stocks, mutual fund companies, and institutions. I was just reading something about that last night, that a majority of the people that are in the stock market are institutions.
The reason I asked that, Cindy, is because some of what I talk about, right? It is like we are a bifurcated economy. There are those that do things in the stock market, and then there are the rest of us. I mean, my stock market days are over. Political activism doesn't lend itself to stock market activities. A lot of stock market activities, that said. But anyhow, so you decide, you're trying to tell folks when you get that stimulus, it's going to look like a windfall. Just
Yep.
don't go throw it out there. Be responsible with it. So what other financial mistakes should we be avoiding with this stimulus that comes? And then later on, as you're answering these questions, please start thinking about, there's a whole lot of commentary on the stimulus. And I want to hear your thoughts, not from a, hey, the stock market is going to look good, but whether it is a sensible plan or not. But first, what are the mistakes people make?
Well, I think a lot of mistakes. This is the statistic. CNBC came up with a statistic last year, which is very alarming. 75% of Americans reject financial advice today.
Mm-hmm.
And I reject financial advice today. And I think that's attributed to two factors. There's a new term in the field of psychology called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. It's a new cognitive bias that people, unfortunately, think they know more about a subject than they do. And that's in all industries, okay?
Right.
I mean, when I get sick, I Google something, right? So the digital age, unfortunately, has made a lot of people access to information, but not knowledge. And that is a huge mistake, because people are out there trying to do it themselves with the information that's on the internet or things that they Google. But information isn't knowledge unless an expert can interpret it. So that's definitely another mistake, is too many investors. JP Morgan actually did a recent study. In the last 20 years, the average individual investing their own money averaged about 2.8%. So, not having somebody, a financial coach, a financial advisor, a certified financial advisor guiding you is critical in your success, along with getting financial empowerment. And I see with the digital age, people aren't reading anymore. And, I'm authoring a book, April 6th, and it's on Amazon right now, Redefining Financial Literacy.
I am going to have a link to that book, because I think in our economic system, I am not a fan of our economic system, but if we're in the framework of our economic system, I think it is important that you know the parameters under which to act. So please continue. But I just wanted to say that I see a reason to have a book like yours.
Well, the book is really on economic and political risk. Things that you probably would enjoy, because I believe it's politics and economic ideologies that put us at a disadvantage in America when it comes to our retirement system and our three-legged stool for pension, Social Security, and the 60-40 model. So again, once you've taken, you've taken your emotions, put it aside, and started to think about the money logically, the next thing you really need to do is prioritize your goals, your investment objectives, and find a strategy. Even dollar cost averaging into investments is a great way to go. And I always like to tie some money up over the long run, because it keeps us from wanting to go get at it. Because if the money is always in a liquid investment, you're going to be very, very open to just, hey, I need that purse, or I need that, this and that, or so trying to tie some of that money up in a long-term investment, such as an IRA or a Roth IRA, would be recommended, so that you can't really touch that till 59 and a half. And then keep enough for emergency. And again, take what your monthly expenses are, multiplying times 3. So if your expenses are $2,000, $3,000 a month times 3, most people should have about $9,000 in their emergency fund, 3 months worth of their expenses.
Well, let me but just first say, I think as planners who know what they're doing, is really a godsend. I mean, the economy is the different pieces of our economy can be complex as they are, and they are more complex than I think they need to be. But that that means we should have. And let me tell you, I can tell you the reality about uh, thinking you know more than you do when it
Yeah.
comes to stock market, etc. Uh, Guilty as charged. I remember earlier I lost a ton of money on AOL. I remember when AOL was bought Time Warner. I just thought it was the greatest thing since apple pie. Lost my shirt, but but what's how true it is that you give a monkey a dart to throw at something and he does just as well as a stock picker. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to your 401ks, I ask a lot of my clients, how do you pick your 401ks? They said, well, I asked my friend. I look at the returns, whatever is the highest return I allocate. So, and it's unfortunate because it's not your fault. The educational system in this country has not equipped us with financial literacy, and the financial service industry doesn't help educate. So investors more so today, more than ever, are on their own. So to reach out to a qualified professional who can be your financial coach, put you on track, set your goals and objectives up, and monitor that to make sure you're getting exactly where you want to go is critical, more so than any other time in history.
Cindy, that is one of the most prescient statements. Our educational system has failed us in so many ways, financially, politically, and otherwise.
Yes.
Now, back to the question that I asked you to think about, as far as the bill in general. Do you think it's a net positive? I don't know what your ideology is specifically, but people tend to look at this bill different ideological
Yep.
points of view. What are your thoughts on it in not necessarily ideologically, but will it be a net positive for the economy?
Temporarily, I have mixed emotions about it because
Tell me,
anytime you,
I'd like to hear about your mixed emotions about
okay,
it.
so my mixed emotions is this, and this is what a part of my book is about, is when you continue to borrow money to grow, okay, whether that's a government, a corporation, or individuals, and you're borrowing money to help grow the economy, sooner or later, that bubble bursts, and stimulus and monetary policy that this country has been under the last 20 years of borrowing trillions and trillions of dollars has caused havoc in our economic and political system. People aren't upset a Republican or a Democrat won office. People are upset about their money because, unfortunately, inequality, there's just 8 men that dominate half the world's wealth. And that is a big problem. I think short term, it will definitely help people that are suffering, who are unemployed and who may have been furloughed or have lost their jobs. But at the end of the day, continuing to stimulate the economy for COVID-19, for the credit crisis and the tech wreck, is causing havoc on our retirement system. It's causing havoc in social issues in America today, on our retirement goals. And I think long-term, it's not good. Short-term, I think it would definitely help some people out.
Let me ask you this, because you are correct about us having deficit spending. Now, there are certain economists, specifically Stephanie Kelton, who believes that we have about a $500,000 to $800,000 slack in our markets right now, which would say, given that this $1.9 trillion is over several years, would just about fit that yearly slack that we have in our economy. And I know you're a financial planner, but to be a financial planner, you had to have some economics 101 as well. So let me ask you your thoughts on this, because I've been promoting this a whole lot. Most of the things that people are concerned about with our deficit spending is that we're in the long run going to get an overheated economy, inflation, etc. But right now we have such an underinflated economy where there's so much work to be done. There are there are a lot of workers ready to do the job,
Yeah.
but there's a connection that's missing, that thing in the middle. And it seems to me like these stimuli or that. And I want to add one other thing before I ask you to answer. And also, when we're building things of value, a bridge, I mean, isn't money in exchange for gold the same thing as building a bridge in exchange for money that ultimately also generate money from its own existence?
Yes, but you need the jobs, right? A lot of our
Right.
jobs have been, eliminated and taken through globalization. And, I just think that, a few in the country benefit from what's happening in this economic
Exactly.
ideology we have today. And I think the middle has really gotten hurt. And I just think when capitalism isn't working, in my professional opinion, we just need to tighten things up and balance.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Cindy. Hold on a second. Did I just
Yes.
hear you say what you said?
Yeah, I believe that, when the SEC allows companies or they repeal laws and allows companies to buy back their stock and not pay wages to the middle, as much as I know, wages to Americans have been
Stagnant.
slightly stifling for 20 years. Companies have used their profit instead of build their company up and give it to their employees. They've bought back their stocks. They've elevated the stock market because the IRS years ago said you can't pay a CEO more than $1 million. You can't write it off in a company. So companies have been given these stock options. And of course, if they take all their profits and buy back their stocks, they can sell their stock options. And it's the way the wealthier has gotten wealthier in the country. I understand tax cuts are good for the middle class, but when you reduce taxes for corporate America, like we did a few years ago, the administration thought they would give it back to the people. They don't give it back to the people. They keep it for themselves. And, and then you have, in 2000, you have greed because of the tech wreck and credit crisis, you have fraud. And then we got to print money or stimulate through quantitative easing, lowering interest rates, paying money to the banks and TARP money. We are just sustaining this unbelievable theme of greed in corporate America.
My God, Cindy, I would not have expected that narrative from you. I am so happy to hear that because I so agree with what you've just said. And I'll be frank, I think America, we have a problem.
We do.
And I think that problem is, and the problem is ideological, getting involved with the practical. Because, like I said, when you came on here and you said, "Oh, I'm from Orange County," all the stereotypes go up about Orange County,
right.
California, etc. Right? And also being a financial planner and all of that. I mean, I want to learn from you, but I also know that there may be certain biases within you that to go through. But then to hear you say what you just said, understanding what the issue and the problems are that most of us progressives understand, and to have somebody that I'll just say it. I don't think you're a progressive, but it's amazing that you just came out and gave a progressive litany. I find that we have to find some way that we can tell those guys who are running things, this is what's going to help us all.
Well, let me tell you why, because it's correlated to how I invest your money. Most investors have money in stocks and bonds, right? Mm-hmm. So we know interest rates have gone as low as zero. How am I going to get income when I'm a retiree? The second half of it is, what am I going to do as a retiree? Put all my money in the stock market and lose 40%? So we have this quandary going on in society today. People are scared, they're anxious, they feel like they're going to run out of money, and the writing's on the wall. Using a 2-asset class model, in my professional opinion, is no longer sustainable, and we must build a multi-asset class concept to fight these economic and political ideologies that have come against us in the last 30 to 50 years, and we can do it. We can build a sustainable retirement. There are other asset classes that you can jump into that are similar to what the rich people have had or the endowments have had access to: commercial real estate. You've heard cryptocurrency. You've heard private credit, venture capital. There are asset classes that the Main Street investors can now take advantage of that we didn't have 20 years ago. And that David Swanson of the Yale Endowment have been using 7 asset classes, beating the S&P 500. So we must fight back. We must get educated and empowered that we can invest like the wealthy elites in this country, as well as the largest institutions in America.
Cindy Couyoumjian, certified financial planner. I think that's a perfect place to end this, except that I always ask this last question. What would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
No, I think you covered I'm glad you touched based on the political and economic ideologies, because I think that's what's hidden from investors. And by you uncovering that, you're making us all smarter, all empowered to make a difference and to fight back these forces. So thank you for having your station and empowering people with the facts.
Cindy Guzman, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.